All right, Jane, should we start?
Yes, let's start. Good morning to all of you, and thank you all for joining us today. We are blown away to hear that we are at the maximum registration capacity, even though I just heard that we are only 40. Okay. It's a topic where we are so deeply passionate about and has been for many months a dream to organize this event. Now it turned reality.
Yes, finally. So we have 1.5 hours together to go through very interesting cases, and I don't know how many buzzwords we can combine in one title. So we have a circle economy, we have customer experience, and we have innovation. So for sure you will find something interesting from this meetup. Today on air with you, my dear colleague Jane.
Hi, yeah, well, for who doesn't know me, I'm Jane Vita, and I work as a design director at Digitalist and also conduct some elective courses at service design with the emerging technologies at Alto. My passion about sustainable living started in my childhood. I was born in a city called Curitiba in Brazil, famous among urban planners for its innovation and regional development. With a reputation for being the high livable and very sustainable. Did you know that?
I'm learning for you every time.
It was one of the first cities in the market that marketed itself as a green in the 80s. Yeah, so I'm a green kid, we call that. And I volunteer for many of the green causes. And today it's amazing for me and it's so rewarding to be investing my paid work hours on supporting companies that each to reach their sustainable goals. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, and we just got a message from our technical guy that to see you, Jane, you can come closer, and we have to break all the COVID rules. Yes, so good morning, everyone. From my side, I'm Alexi. If we never met before, so I'm customer experience innovation lead at Digitalist and senior business designer. Here we work together with Jane and run different projects together. I'm super also excited and passionate about this topic for many reasons, and actually we will go through many whys very, very soon. Today our program is quite intensive, so what we have on the menu?
Oh, we are we're listening amazing guests of telling their stories on how they innovating and what are the actions they are taking to take this path. So we have Anssi, Paalanen, head of WEEE Recycling, and Boas, Jonsson, project manager at Fortum, with presenting note of the fate of your EAs plus a case study like from Voi.
Yes, as well as Jonas Kronlund, he will tell from Elisa. He will tell about corporate responsibility and different kind of circular economy. Or he will tell a story from both energy and material point of view.
And Riikka, Paarma, director of circular economy at Stora, Enso, and she'll tell us like circular design as a starting point for innovation. Yes, I'm here.
Yes. And our dear co-colleagues Lisa and Mats from Grow, they will tell about sustainable packaging at the end. Each presentation will be 15 minutes max, and there will be different signals coming from us and also William sitting over here when you will run out of time. So stay sharp with the time, and by doing that, we will have around 15 minutes at the end of this meetup for the questions and the roundtable discussion. Please don't leave us before roundtable, because we have some very important message for you to tell at the wrap up at 10:25. Okay, should we continue?
Why we are here? Why, Alex?
Yes, I was thinking on the way to the studio this morning about whys, and I remember when I was studying design at Aalto, I was told that innovation has place in the intersection of what is desirable, what is feasible, and what is viable. You know, if you have those three ingredients in place, this is kind of the source for innovation. And then I went to Singapore to study innovation management, and it was exactly the same. I was kind of well trained that, hey, you need those three: the need, the technology, and the business value, and then things will fly. And when the first circle economy case landed my work table, and I was like, damn, this is like by the book. You definitely have alarming need. You already have so fascinating disruptive technologies from fourth industrial revolution, as well as there is a clear indicator that the circle economy has a positive financial impact on your business.
So people are making money with that, right?
A lot, yes. And I was asking myself then why we don't see more and more of circle economy cases, or why it's so behind, because as a framework, it's pretty old. It's more than 30 years old already, and we're still kind of talking, but not like really big impact happening, or kind of late. So from this alarming need, sometimes when we do projects with customers, we really have to invest a lot of time at finding why or what is the need. And in case of circle economy, the need is kind of on the table in front of you. It's already there. So we already consume 1.75 times more than our Earth is actually can offer, and we eat more. And more. So here you see some figures. By 2030, we will need 35+% more food, 40% plus of water, and 50% plus demand on the energy. So all the figures they kind of grow up. And at the same time, our population is growing. So we are expecting more than 9 billion people on this planet by 2050. And at the same time, everything grows, but we actually all the resources that we take from the earth, we don't take it back. So only 9 or less than 9% of resources are returned back into production. And at the same time, all the situation with animals, and you don't know, or I will not tell all the details. You know it better than me. So and then COVID come. And then COVID, yes. But remember, wash your hands, and you will be safe. So with all this need, we have disruptive technologies. You see them all in all news and articles. We have from digital side, artificial intelligence, then IoT, all the smart meters and machine learning technologies and the blockchain. On the physical disruptive technology side, we have 3D printing, robotics, artificial reality and virtual reality, nanotechnologies. There are like
and a lot of things,
you name them. Yes,
yeah. It's all about like willingness, right? We have everything we need, and we just need people that embrace that. I think this is such a
looks like.
Yeah.
And on the financial side, we have. Can you count how many zeros are over there?
I don't even know how to say this number.
It's 4.5 trillion dollars. This is kind of very conservative estimate of what's the value or potential of circle economy by 2030. So we have the need, we have a technology, and we have a really good cases coming. Just cover a few. William is already showing that we are a bit behind the schedule, so I have to rush up.
We could stay forever here saying so many things just to convince you that we are in the right path.
Yes. So maybe to show one that I was really happy about. So 40% of plastic produced is packaging, and this plastic is used only once. So there is really cool startup from US, and what they offer you a kit with reusable bottles, and then you just subscribe for those small tablets. For example, once a month you will get tablets for the dishwasher, for laundry machine, and for the soap. So you don't need to buy those bottles anymore. You don't need to kind of transport all the heavy chemicals. So you just take the bottle, you fill in it with the clear water from your tap, and you just drop one tablet, and voila,
Yeah.
magic happens. So
what is holding us back?
Exactly. Then why we are here? And if we have all things in place, why are we here? And this is something that we want also to ask our participants. What do you think? What are the reasons we currently don't see more circular solutions? And please use the chat. It's somewhere here or here. So at the bottom of the screen. So please, during the presentations, keynotes, share your thoughts, ideas of what holds circular economy. And with this, and being a little bit behind the schedule,
without further ado, I would love to welcome Fortum first up center of the stage, the screen.
Yes.
Mr. Anssi and Mr. Boas and our colleague Alex.
Yes.
Presenting Know the Fate of Your e-waste plus a case study from WEEE.
I think for that I have to stop sharing my screen and then give the power to Mr. Anssi and Boas.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And can you see the screen?
Good morning.
Check.
Yes, excellent. My name is Boas Jonsson. I'm a project manager in Fortum, and I've been working very closely with Anssi Paalanen and Alex Rodichev. Good morning, Anssi.
Good morning, good morning.
And also Alexander Rodichev has been in on this for quite a much here. So, well, thank you also, Alex. So what we're going to be talking about here is about materials and recycling and the importance of the recycling and what we can do new to improve our current ways. I have to put my camera on. Here I am. Good morning. So, knowing the fate of your e-waste, taking away e-waste and focusing on materials, because we are talking about circular economy, means that we should reduce as much waste as possible and create them into secondary raw materials instead. How to do that, we need to know also more about what we are doing in very much detail. So what we're going to talk about here is the key of transparency, actually the key of traceability as a tool to focus towards a transparent way, which has more than just one solution. But first of all, I would like to a little bit open up what recycling is. It happens very often that people take it very much for granted, that the recycling is one partner that handles everything and voila, you have a new product. But the complexity of the industry is a little bit more wider than that. As you see here, there's the collection, which usually the recyclers are the first, there they put their first hand on the material and take it into processing. But then also not everybody can process all kinds of materials. So that materials goes forward to another processor, etc., until it reaches the recovery of the materials. Here it's a metal recovery as an example, but we also have plastic recovery and so on. So just to bring a little bit awareness of the complexity of recycling, so we are not, so we know where we stand. And I think we should all be more aware about our whole circularity when it comes to materials. So as you know, that e-waste is a growing market, an extreme growing market. We can so easily get our hands on new electronics and dispose of our old ones. And Fortum is now growing into the market of electronic recycling. So WEEE recycling, waste electronic electric equipment. We are now already ahead with plastic recycling, metals, and also very big now on lithium-ion batteries. So what happens today is that everybody has a very, very simple way of getting rid of their e-waste. And that is to order a pickup, and they can dump all their stuff in, and it goes to the recycling facility. It gets processed, further processed, and so on. But of course, in recycling, we have to all be honest with each other that there is always some waste residues, and that's something we need to remember for further down this pitch. The materials contain stuff that are not so easily recyclable and stuff that are recyclable. But today, we are kind of neglecting to know. It's very much out of sight, out of mind. But there is a change coming, and you can really sense it on new industries, especially new industries that are coming to the market, how important it is to keep the whole value chain as a very, very, so let's say, exposed and important factor in your business. So it's not anymore about your own business. It's about what happens in the whole value chain. Where's the product coming from? Where's the product going in the end of life? And how is it re-entering the whole circularity? So this is what the companies are, as I said, aiming for. They need to show these ethical and sustainable practices, because this is what makes them not only as a PR value, but this is, in big honesty, this is the way of keeping a sustainable business and not having a short-term goals, but they're actually hoping to jump on this circularity train and saying that we can do this for years and years to come. But then companies need to know, what are we actually doing in the whole value chain? And the value chain today is it's not too open sourced. So a small reality check here is that our global e-waste market, it's huge, and we have very good systems, and we have like magnificent companies in the Nordics and Europe that do really take care of the e-waste and handle it really well. But still, in the world, we are still exporting a lot, and there's a lot of e-waste that is not documented. And very often it happens so that e-waste is it's not e-waste, it's called the secondhand products, and that can end up in places where they have very little capacity or knowledge on how to actually then recycle it afterwards, which ends up then in just landfill or burning the materials for to take out the copper and all the valuables, but then leave all the difficult complex materials to burn on the ground. This happens today. This is nothing new and has been going on for decades. So and also in our society in Sweden, Finland, for example, then we have still a lot of e-waste that ends up in our bins. So I wouldn't say that the private sector has a really good way of handling their e-waste, but they can very easily just dump it in the trash and hope that something solves somewhere. So that's an issue we need to also tackle. So that is a reality check. So what are we doing then? What have me and Anssi and Alex and all the good people of Fortum there in Ikalinen been doing? We have been working on this whole concept of that we are using traceability as a tool to open up the transparency. That's one thing that we do. So we're opening up the transparency and saying that we focus on recycling everything and sorting and separating it in batch-wise. So we want to gather as much data as possible. I mean, in our current world today, we have been having data as king. Data has been king for a little while, but very little in the recycling. It's mostly about how much tons have you taken into the recycling, and it ends there. So what we are now aiming to do is to gather extreme data from recycling, so that our cooperators, the people that we work with, and we're going to show in the case example soon, is going to have more control of what they do, and they can also be made sure of that they know where their stuff is going. As I said, recycling is it's a complex industry. So we need to trace the materials forward, and we want to have the feedback from our customers to make sure that this is going the right way, because this communication has not been existing in the past decades. So while doing that, we do actually indirectly stop the illegal e-waste export, and of course we reduce the extracting of raw materials because we try to recycle, but we're not the only ones doing that, of course. But we are providing the highest level of transparency and details. And this, as I said, this is number one in the this whole tracing for transparency. This is not the only tool that it does. It doesn't only bring the good feel of heart that now I've done right, everything is right now, but this is also a practical push for the circular economy. Because when our customers know exactly how much waste they have and where it goes and how efficiently it's be able to be recycled, and we can collect that data, we can bring that back to the customer, and they have also a production plant where they can give feedback. So like, oh, okay, we have 3% waste of this product. Why isn't it recycled? It's because it's not a good recyclable product. So nobody can recycle it. So then they can feed the information back into the circular circle and inform and say that we want our product to be more sustainable. So please take this module, don't do that anymore, and add something that's recyclable. Same goes with plastic. If there's a bad plastic with inflammatory things that don't need to be there, for example, or a plastic that is really difficult to recycle, black plastic or something like that, so they can change that. So this is one of the strongest tools we have to basically push into the circular economy and teach everybody, not teach, but inform and communicate. And hopefully in the beginning now we can communicate both forward and backwards in this circular economy. And we need to start talking more together and agree on a common goal. I think that's a very strong circular economy message. So this is the case of what we've been studying now with Voi, for example, Voi, and they want to measure, avoid, reduce, and offset to deliver a carbon neutral mobility option. So we give them data of exactly what happens in this thing. What is their scooters? How is the scooters recycled? Of course, you can design the product to be 100% recycled and so on, but the fact is that we are all focusing on our own industry, so we don't communicate that way. And the people who are making products are not talking to the recyclers, how can we do it the best? That would be genius. Sure, we should start from that, but we should also work our ways around this circularity, as shown here. Maybe I spoke a little bit and forgot to change the slides a bit, but here's how it works today, to show how the whole supply chain needs to be kind of in order, and it works. So what we have done with Voi, for example, here comes an extra that we have charged all Voi scooters with hydropower. That's another bonus for them to have green energy. And then we are working on this data-centric, very pristine way of recycling. And this helps Voi to communicate backwards to the product manufacturers, to the part manufacturers. And we can communicate further also because we get the data. The data here is very important for our circular economy. So I think this way of working is a completely new way for our industry, and it's very much needed. I think the battle for margins of recycling materials has been going on for decades now, and it's not fulfilling like the way into the circular economy. We need more data. So that is what we've been working on. And we also want to provide our customers with easy data, that this is something that they can also trust that it's done well. And they can show it well, what they do, and they can read themselves what they do. So for this, we need even more partners. So I would really encourage anybody to contact me or Anssi regarding this, because to get this pushed forward, I think everybody needs to also start to jump on this train. I don't believe that we fly on this ourselves. I don't believe that it's enough to have just a few players, but we need to have people more focused on getting this done properly. So the interest needs to be shown that it is there. And this will help our circular economy for sure. And this is our team of people who have been working really hard on this, because this is very complex within complexity, and to gather all this data. I know I'm a bit over time here, but Alex stole a few of my minutes, so it's payback time.
You're good.
So please, anybody who would be interested to know more, then feel free to contact me, Boas, or Anssi Paalanen in Fortum. So thank you very much for the opportunity to bring up this very passionate project and hoping for a better world. Thanks.
Thank you, Boas. We need those audio effects with the clapping. You know, thank you very much for telling this story and telling us about the importance of transparency and the power of data, and how this data, what's the role of data in the circular economy value chain. That's really interesting to see how this kind of tangible manifest can show to all different players in the value chain that what they should do differently to enable circularity in the value chain. Thank you very much, Anssi. Thank you very much, Boas. And Jane, who is next?
Next, we have from Elisa, Jonas Kronlund. He's corporate responsibility manager at Elisa. Yes. And then you talk about the circular economy from both of energy and materials point of view. Welcome to the stage, Jonas. Great to have you here.
Thank you for inviting, and great to be able to start and continue this dialogue. And Boas, let's for sure have a chat at some point. So I work at Elisa, which is a telecom operator in Finland and Estonia, and sustainability is something we have taken to heart. We renewed our mission statement at the beginning of the year, so it's nowadays sustainable future through digitalization. So digitalization is the means that we have in our context to take things forward. And we have also committed to becoming climate neutral this year in 2020. The picture you see here, I'll keep it short, but it is the why. And the why is that there is only one Earth, but as we are going at the moment, to add on top of Alex's great list of facts, by 2050 we would need 3 planets. So that is the why, when we need to change how we think about things. So next slide, please. So this is maybe then the how. And the thing is that we clearly need to eliminate the overuse of resources and the waste that it generates. And circularity is the way of doing this, one of the ways. And when moving from linear to circular, we try to route our waste back into raw materials, but also waste that cannot anymore be reused. It should then be transformed into energy in a sustainable way. And as a curiosity, with Fortum, we have made in our data center recycling of excess of waste heat and directing that into district heating, just as an example of how energy can also be part of a circular economy. The takeaway from this picture is perhaps the right part, that is where Elisa can have more impact, and the 5 R's. I added an R called retain, and I'll explain that later on as well. But let's come back to these and take the next slide. Thanks. So, an organization has a carbon footprint, and products have a carbon footprint. As was just shown with the WEEE example also, and I think that the transparency that Boas mentioned, it's a really key issue here. As a listed company, we need to describe our carbon footprint, and this is a visualization or some kind of infograph of how it is for Elisa. So there are 3 scopes. Scope 1, and covers the organization's direct emissions, and in Elisa's case, it's mainly the premises, the buildings, the offices. Scope 2 concerns indirect emissions from energy used by the organization, and for us it's quite low because we use 100% renewable energy and have certificates of origin for that. And then scope 3, that is what includes all other indirect emissions that occur in the value chain. So you see the yellow part in the picture here. So and what you further can spot is the overwhelmingly biggest part of emissions in the whole value chain that comes from the purchased goods and services. So that is something we will now, in the next few minutes, dive a little bit deeper into still. So let's go to the next slide here. So this starts to become complicated now, but I'll try to open my thinking here. This is a similar circular diagram that in the previous presentation, and let's start with looking at the retain part in the bottom beneath the Elisa logo. So this is where we maybe, let's imagine we enter the loop here. And on the left side you see one paradigm. It's a product oriented and what we've been calling inside out approach. So it starts from the company and then offer pretty traditional way of offering products to the market. Then on the right side, there is a customer needs outside in paradigm. So that really starts from a customer need to build up handprint, and handprint is how the customer, by his actions that we can help to accomplish how this customer can go about reducing carbon footprint. So it's quite important to have this way of thinking, because the ICT industry, a significant portion of the environmental impact there comes from manufacturing of devices, as you already saw in the previous slide, the biggest yellow box in the picture. And this manufacturing often contains scarce materials, and as you know, these devices tend to have a limited lifespan, and that's because of rapid technical progress, and that's in hardware and software. So from an environmental viewpoint, it makes total sense to take good care of one's mobile device. So it's completely all right to go for quality but then keep it for as long as possible. Elisa is one of the biggest resellers of devices in Finland, and as I mentioned, often an entry point of the customer experience loop that I tried to describe in this illustration here. Then the and that it's very much about customer desires when acquiring this shiny new thing and entering this loop. But then there are pretty smart new options as well. For example, we sell Fairphone, a brand, and that is a modular approach and very repairable and replaceable. So there are kind of new ways of thinking, even in a very traditional value chain. Then if you go to the repair, that's about solving customer frustrations caused by, for example, a cracked screen or depleted battery. Now we're switching to Fortum, which is Elisa's device service operations brand, and they have developed service in such a way that they with speed and quality try to build a sustainable business also from an environmental point of view. So the leading thought here is that every repaired mobile phone is one manufactured device less, and that brings savings both in money for the customer and has a bit environmental impact. Then about the reuse, if we continue in the loop, on the left side, it implies that a product or parts of a product can be utilized for a new purpose. So an obvious example in Fortum's case would be its range of accessories, which include protective covers made from recycled plastics collected from the seas. About 15 to 20% of the offering right now consists of products produced in a sustainable manner. Another way one could claim to see reuse is generating positive emotions, also simply by passing on an old mobile device. For example, a parent giving the first phone to a school child. And one could also see that the way of introducing reuse could be to sell one's old phone. For example, Elisa would buy your phone, which is reasonably new, and then introduce it into the cycle of circular economy. So then if you look at the right side in this image still, about the needs-based outside in paradigm. So it's really about responding to new scenarios on the market. And this becomes important when preparing for transitions and coming from our own ambitions, as with the new mission statement, sustainable future through digitalization, but also regulations, for example, and customer expectations. And or should we actually say stakeholder expectations, because it's not only the customers. So all in all, this is how we could try to help customers build up their own carbon footprint. Oh, sorry, handprint. So to lessen the footprint. And here, the refurbish blue sphere in the upper right corner. That's how Fortum takes old devices and makes them look and feel almost as new ones. So it's a transformative way for customers to pretty cost efficiently and very safely acquire high quality second-hand devices. And by choosing this option, customers can at the same time save up to 95% of emissions that is created by a device over its lifetime. Fortum ensures also that the personal data security is ensured throughout the refurbishment, because you have much personal data on a mobile device always, and so it's very critical to handle that part. And could mention as a curiosity that also the packaging of these refurbished devices made of 95% recycled cardboard, and this additional increase decreases carbon footprint. Then we have recycle, the last one. When you can't do anything more, then you have to recycle. And this was already described in depth in the previous presentation, so I'll just touch upon this slightly now. But Fortum and Elisa, we have obligations to take care of this, as was already mentioned, and it's fairly straightforward. We have cooperation with the ICT Producer Cooperative and the Finnish Packaging Recycling Riikka Limited. So for any company, this is often the first touch point with something that starts to resemble circular economy within its business operations. And it's also a very concrete way for customers to make to have impact, even societally level impact. And so a problem that we should try to solve here is that, well, I think most of us probably have some old devices laying around in drawers, and those we should actually bring to the stores. I'm not sure if everybody knows that the stores are obliged to take these devices and handle them in a proper manner. So let's try to lessen the need to extract virgin materials from the Earth's crust this way, together. This is important. Yeah, let's go to the last slide. I think I have a couple of minutes perhaps left here. 1 minute, okay. Oh, you startled me there. Yeah, 1 minute. But all in all, there are some strategic questions. So how do we meet stakeholder expectations? And this is concerns legislations, but also customers, and the way that Fortum, as just an example, has tried to do this is that they have renewed their entire store concept brand, and it really builds around sustainability and circular economy. It's in their core, you could say. And yeah, thank you for allowing me to present this very interesting case, I think. And let's hope for a great discussion afterwards.
Thank you, Jonas, very much. It's fascinating to see how Elisa is bringing value and generating positive impact on society and solving customer frustrations in a circular, sustainable way. Thank you very much for the presentation. And Jane, who's next?
Okay, so we have Riikka Paarma, Director of Circular Economy at Stora Enso, and she'll talk about circular design as a starting point for innovation. Welcome, Riikka.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here, and thank you for excellent presentations before me, and also thank you for some really good bridges to my presentation. I'm glad to hear that Elisa's packaging is 99% recycled carton board. That's excellent.
Wow.
Okay. Could we then go to my presentation? I think you have the slides.
Yes, William will help with that. We can
Perfect.
Start. Yes, if you just
I can obviously start without the slides, but it's great that if we can have those. Maybe I'll start with sort of recapping on your intro. Thank you for the really good intro to circular economy in the very beginning. You mentioned the circular economy is around 30 years old as a concept. I think that sort of academically or theoretically that's probably true, but as a concept it's much longer than humankind. I mean, the whole natural system works in a circular way. And as a company and as our starting point, Stora Enso comes from the starting point where all our main raw material comes from that natural cycle. And as a company, then obviously our starting point for innovation and how we operate in a sustainable manner is all about this sustainably managed forest and wood-based fiber that is then our main raw material. So basically we are dealing with two loops, with the natural loop, which is the sort of older than humankind loop, and then we are dealing with the same product loop as anyone here. I think that I have also shared the PPT version where you could also have the full screen mode, but let's stick with this if this is what we have. So first slide, I think, is this one. So as a company, we believe that everything that's made from fossil-based materials today can be made from a tree tomorrow. So that's our starting point as a company, as a circular bioeconomy company, and that comes back to what I just explained about the renewability of materials. So this is not just something that has come with the buzzword of circular economy. This is where we come from, and this is what makes business sense for us as a company. Next slide, please. No boring company presentations coming up, just to show you who we deal with, who are our customers. So we have 5 different divisions, or 6 different divisions today, and that shows you who are our customers. So basically packaging industry, packaging converters, brand owners, retailers, anyone interested in utilizing paper-based packaging that is then highly recyclable. We have biomaterials, which is more traditional and more modern or innovative pulp products, fluff products for instance, for textiles, for hygiene, for pharma, and so on. Then we have wood products, that is providing different wood products for construction industry, for retail developers, and so on. And then obviously we have forest, that is then taking care of the natural forest cycle, owning our forest assets, and paper, and that is more traditional paper products. As you can see, all of these businesses are dealing with either a highly recyclable product, so packaging or paper, or then with something where the lifetime of the product is definitely very long. So for instance, wood products is dealing with wooden buildings that are usually more than 100, supposed to be built for hundreds of years. So circular in essence, but obviously there is also room for improvement and taking the next steps, and also understanding what circular economy means from new business development and innovation point of view. Next slide, please. We come from a traditional paper background, but here you can see that within around 15 years we have grown to a quite versatile portfolio that I just showed you. So this obviously means that innovation and new material innovation, new ways of working, and also new business models are immensely important for us as a company, have been and will be. So innovation is one of the core elements of the company. Next slide, please. When we talk about sustainability and circular economy, we quite often use these almost synonymically, or then sort of think what is the actual difference. And for us, sustainability, that's where we are heading. That's the goal, that's the long-term transformation needed for the society, for companies, for everyone. And that is also something that has intrinsic value, whereas circular economy is actually a toolbox. It's a way of structuring the world so that we are dealing in tune with the natural cycles, and with that in tune with the economy and with the society and its needs. So basically circular economy is fun for business. It's a way of getting to sustainability while still making money. So it's not a degrowth theory. So next slide, please. Here is the loop, the 8 loop that I mentioned. So basically we are dealing indeed with 2 different loops that are interconnected. So the natural cycle of the forest and then the product cycle. And for us, the starting point is circular design. And obviously the very starting point is the renewable raw materials. But when you then look at the products and how that links back to innovation, we know that recycling is important. We know that new business models are cool and we need that. But at the same time, everything starts with how you design not just the product, but the whole product value system. The whole, not just value chain, but really value ecosystem around your product and around your material. And this is where we're at the moment focusing our major efforts in circular economy and circular bioeconomy. So how we can integrate better circular design into how we operate internally and externally with our customers, with our suppliers, with even regulators. So increasing the awareness of circular economy, both internally and externally, and integrating that into everything we do. We have built a circular economy program, which has 3 different areas: circular design, circular value, that's about the different pilots and different new tryouts, both within Stora and with our different stakeholders, most importantly our customers, where we then go and venture these different circular business models. And then finally communicating circularity, and that's something that one cannot really emphasize too much. We need communication. We need to build a circular culture of thinking. You cannot have circular innovation culture in a company that doesn't have a language for circular economy. So communicating very actively and also engaging our people and the wider society in circular economy is super important as well. That is also one reason why we have now set up a set of circular design principles to have that language, to have that vocabulary. But I will come back to that in a moment. If we look at this loop, I mentioned already that everything starts with the renewable raw material, with the forest and its natural cycle, and how we strive to keep up the biodiversity of the forest so that we gain the best out of the forest and the forest gains the best out of us, so that it is truly circular and sustainable. But then when we look at our own operations, actually as a company and as an industry, so forestry industry and forestry companies like Stora have had a quite circular history. So companies in this industry have been very good at untapping the potential of utilizing side streams and byproducts in their production for tens and tens of years. So that's not so much new. It wasn't called circular economy, it was resource efficiency or just smart business, smart way of doing things. But now obviously we are looking for more and more innovative uses also in our operations and in our production for those side streams, to turn those into new products, also for the external market. Well, then when we look at the products, we are most importantly a material technology company, but more and more we are also looking into what kind of new business models, service models we can build on those products. We have very interesting things like, for instance, we are dealing with modular buildings. Modularity is a major element of circular economy. Also, with packaging, it has been mentioned here that plastics packaging is now offering more and more of these reuse business models, but that's also something that we, coming from the paper-based packaging industry, are very interested in. And of course, in the end, you have recycling, and that's very important. It's far from easy. We heard the Fortum sort of presentation on the topic of how important it is to link all the different pieces of the puzzle, and that is indeed something that we are working a lot with. So recyclability is important. It's not easy to have a both technologically feasible and commercially available recycling system that is working, and that's something that companies won't be doing alone. Next slide, please. So circular design, that's something that is really high on our circularity agenda at the moment. So only 1 month ago, I got through our leadership team a set of circular design guidelines, a set of circular design principles. That is our foundation for circular design. These are not things that are wholly new to the company, most definitely not. We have principles that like design for renewable materials, which is the starting point of the company. But at the same time, this is the first time when we have this on black and white, and are now integrating this into our product management and innovation management process, both as a starting point for innovation, but also through different gate checks within those processes. Some principles that I want to highlight here is that obviously it has principles that are our starting point, like design for renewable materials, but also we do use other materials as well. So design for recycled materials is extremely important for us, especially when we are dealing with materials that are not renewable. So striving for renewable and recycled materials. But then we also have the principle of design for circularity of the full value chain. And I think that this is something that all the speakers today will most definitely understand as something that is at the very heart of circularity. So circular design and circular economy are a way of creating new networks and orchestrating a huge amount of information and different stakeholders together towards a joint goal. And that's actually what's one of the reasons, coming back to the earlier question on what holds circular economy back. It's not easy to orchestrate these networks. So that's also one reason why we have designed for circularity of the full value chain as one of our core circular principles. Next slide, please. I have some product examples just to show what in practice means circular innovation at Stora Enso. So this is Cellofoam, a super interesting piece of innovation in which we have just invested in a pilot plant. So Cellofoam is the missing piece of packaging. Until now, we have had protective packaging usually based on plastics, fossil-based materials. But with Cellofoam, that is a lightweight protective material made fully from cellulose fibers, we have finally a fully fiber-based renewable packaging entity, also with the protective material, which also enables the end user to very easily recycle everything in the same stream. So I think that this is a very nice example. Next slide, please. The next example is actually something that was partly also COVID-19 induced. Obviously, this is something that we had been working on. Pure fiber. It's a single-use food packaging item that is purely plastic-free. It doesn't have any plastic-based coating material or barrier. So it's everything is renewable, and with that it also goes to be recycled in the paper stream. So very easy for the end user, and has a 75% lower CO2 print compared to alternative materials. And with COVID-19, we saw the huge boom of single-use food packaging with all the takeout, and that's why there seems to be a strong market demand for products like pure fiber. And next slide, please. And then my final example is for design of a full value chain circularity. So we have been, and this is just one example, probably many of you know that there are all these different consortiums and platforms emerging in circular economy. Full Evergreen is a very important platform for us. It's a new collaboration platform that we have been part of setting up. And it aims to improve the recyclability of paper-based packaging. It's truly a value chain collaboration. So we have everything from from chemical and technology companies, material producers like ourselves, converters, brand owners, retailers, and recyclers. So all the missing pieces of the puzzle. And together this consortium or platform works on, for instance, design for circularity guidance, recovery, recycling, and communication, which is very important, both to the end users, but also, for instance, to policymakers to understand what it takes to have a well-functioning infrastructure in place for circularity. And I think that that's the end of my presentation. So with that, I would very much like to welcome any questions that you may have on either how Stora Enso works with circularity or sort of any kind of ideas for and suggestions for collaboration in this area. So thank you very much for listening.
Wow. Thank you.
Riikka.
Thank you, Riikka, very much. And we are collecting questions. So please write it in the chat. Soon we will have a panel discussion. Yes.
It was very inspiring.
It was. And I remember a few years ago, I participated Hack the Pack, hackathon organized by Stora Enso. And I remember back then at the beginning of hackathon, they played the video with the kind of imagine the future and with different type of materials made of wood. And back then it was more kind of inspiration and kind of long-term vision. And it's super exciting to see that Stora Enso is actually kind of delivering the promise and makes things be tangible and real. So thank you very much for showing this case and building the better world.
And
who's next?
To end today's talks, just before our round table discussion, come to stage Liselotte, Tingvall, executive advisor from the Insights and Innovation, and Linder, director of circular economy from our own sister company, Grow.
Lisa and Mats, stage is yours.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, good. The technology is working.
Works very well.
Perfect.
Yeah, good. Now I can see myself also. Fix my hair. Yeah, there was. I've been taking a lot of notes and screen pictures and everything to remind myself of what we talked about. I think the theoretical framework is really there, and understanding and also big companies' agendas are in line. So we will talk a little bit between theory and practicality also, and talk about some of the obstacles that can happen when you try to work in circularity and also throughout the value chain with different players in the same project. But I think Mats will start, actually. Maybe we should present ourselves also. I'm based in the Stockholm office at Grow, and I've been developing a project the last year around the future of packaging, that we call it, and doing some cases that we will show today.
And I am working together with Liselotte a lot as a director of circular economy, as was described, on the future of packaging platform, which you could say is our innovation vehicle for circular economy, technology-driven circular economy solutions in packaging. So a lot of the examples we will give today are from that world. I believe, and this is what we will try to do, is kind of convey some general insights about this world when it comes to kind of making the difficult transition from linear to circular. And I would really like to highlight what has been already said by the previous presenters, that this transition is hard. It's hard for a number of different reasons. You would think that something that seems to make so much sense, as Alex said at the top, should have happened to a larger extent, and there are dozens of reasons why not. And I guess we will maybe touch on a few more of them in this presentation, but also hopefully describe what kind of interesting things can happen if you start innovating disruptively enough in one end, and then try to expand the vision of what you can actually do with, let's say, a new technology or a new material or something, and how those innovations can in turn be catalysts for a broader business model innovation. But just to remind ourselves of where we are and why we are talking about this, we are basically facing an equation that does not solve when it comes to, on the one hand, the demand of the world's soon to be 10 billion people and the limitations or boundaries of the planet. If we just pick a couple of different statistics, we realize that the challenge to meet sort of the growing demand for food and consumer products only is staggering. And if we continue to try to meet these demands using conventional business models, conventional extractive value chains, we would drastically exceed the scientifically established planetary boundaries. So we clearly need a different approach here. One of the most maybe visible examples of how broken, in a way, the linear value chain is plastic packaging. These are just some statistics coming out from a recently published report called Breaking the Plastics Wave that I really encourage everyone to read, even if you're not working in plastics or in packaging, because it is, I think the problem description and the solution space described there is very applicable to most value chains, in that it's a complex world. There are no simple silver bullet solutions, but it illustrates also how interesting it gets when you start thinking about how to combine these different solutions. So just to pick a few nuggets from this report, we are looking at a doubling of plastic waste generation until 2040 at the business as usual trajectory. That in turn leads to a tripling of the leakage into the ocean and a quadrupling of the amount of plastics in the ocean by 2040. And I'm sure you're aware, and everyone working in a company have probably one strategy or the other concerning plastics in order to reduce the use or recycle more or kind of avoid waste. This report actually looked at the collective impact of all the big public commitments made by companies and by governments and other institutions, and found that of the 154% increase of plastics leakage into the ocean, these commitments would reduce them by 7 percentage points. So this we're clearly far from being ambitious enough when it comes to our circular commitments. I would postulate that this is not true just in plastics, it's true in general. We are doing great things, but we're doing way too little of them, and we're doing them way too unambitiously. So the magnitude of the challenge commands a completely revolutionary approach to doing business, where we have started probing at it, but we're not nearly ambitious enough. So what would it take in this case to reduce plastic pollution? Well, the report kind of looks at a couple of different levers or wedges, and what's really interesting is that the biggest lever in avoiding plastic waste and plastic leakage is in the reduce lever, as you can see on the right side. For example, you have in that you have the complete elimination of need for plastic packaging by kind of a different business model, or you use reusable plastic packaging that doesn't become waste after a use, but it's kind of going back in another loop. That could eliminate 30% of plastic waste. One of the other big levers is substitute, where you're replacing conventional fossil-based plastic with either a paper-based solution or some other new material, for example, bio-based. So taken together, these would actually bend the plastic generation curve. We still have a lot of plastics generated, where we of course need recycling solutions. We need managed disposals, but interestingly, according to this study, recycling is sort of 20% of the total plastic waste management. So really kind of highlighting the need for circular solutions that reduce the actual output of material in the first place. How do you do this? Well, it's not cheap. There is at least a need to quadruple the R&D spend in packaging, but at the same time, the savings per year could be quite significant, reducing emissions on the way and creating jobs. So there is definitely an upside here, which should be something both businesses and policymakers should take note of. One of the recent projects we did together with the Swedish Research Institute RISE was to look at, okay, so what are the potential scenarios of a future 10 years from now, given all the different technology developments, the different business model interventions, policy interventions, consumer behaviors going in. Not surprisingly, maybe there's really only one scenario here that's, should we say, ambitious enough or impactful enough to be close to meeting the Sustainable Development Goals, and that requires both unprecedented commitments and interventions by businesses, so new business models, new commitments to reduce waste, as well as policy enablers, as well as new consumer preferences. However, if we look at the trajectory as of now, and if you remember the 7% from last page, we're kind of probably more likely to be heading kind of to the right on this graph towards a scenario we call the blame game, where lack of action or sluggish action by business prompts policymakers to start taking penalizing action, putting additional levies, additional taxes on waste, on input raw materials. And we think that risks creating a quite toxic environment where people are less and less engaged and encouraged to do transformational work. That's why we think it's really important that we need to see movements in both these directions at the same time. So it's almost like a tag team or relay where policymakers need to send the right signals to encourage businesses make it sort of less risky, if you will, to make bold and ambitious new innovation journeys, where also businesses need to show that there is progress in order to avoid sort of more restrictive and penalizing regulatory action. Another thing that we sometimes think about is what the other risks for businesses are to not do, or vice versa, what the rewards of doing circular transitions are. And of course, there's the customer and the consumer who may or may not reward you for what you do. There's a talent acquisition dimension. I mean, who wants to work with a non-sustainable company in 2030 if you have the talent and the ability to choose? Another one that we just mentioned is policymakers, and then a fourth one is investors. Interestingly, just in 2020, we see that the amount of public equity funds with circular economy focus has increased by a factor 6 in size, just sort of in the first 8 months of the year, and they seem to be generating higher returns than their peer benchmarks as well. Of course, the first half of 2020 is not a normal year, but I think it's still an interesting and telling number. Similarly, in the private sector, an estimate is that the number of funds that have a circular economy focus has increased by tenfold since 2016 only. So it's really taking off exponentially, meaning that you are in a way exposing yourself to a financial risk by not really moving ambitiously towards sustainable and circular economy business models. Now, where does Grow come in all this? We can theorize all day and talk about the risk of doing nothing, but what we are interested in is, of course, helping businesses on this journey. And I will hand over to Liselotte to explain a little bit of how we try to work with businesses on this innovation journey and what our theory of change is.
Yeah, so when we go from this very well built theoretic foundation and we go into practice, then we have to break down the value chains. And we chose to last year focus on specifically on the packaging value chain because it's so visual and it can create quite visual cases also that can act as, our ambition is to create cases that can inspire others because we need to be a lot of people designing for circularity. So we work with, this is how we segment who we work with. The packaging value chain is long and complex. It's all the way from the forest, from Stora Enso, and the R&D at VTT, etc. The value chain has a lot of different barriers that I won't go into unless somebody wants to talk about it at some other point. And the way we do it is by working with science and also with end users at the same time to design attractive targets, visuals. So emerging technologies, industries that has the capital to scale, and brands that understands the drivers on the market is the key factors here. So if we switch the slides to the next slide, what we use as a tool also is the need for companies to innovate. And usually when we start working with clients, there's a lot of projects on Horizon 1, which is extending the life cycle of existing offers, services and products. And we try to balance that out by supporting with innovation strategies and roadmaps that creates a mix between Horizon 1, 2, and 3, so you can get synergies in that direction. This also deserves its own separate presentation, so let's move on.
Maybe just adding one interesting comment. It is the link between, that doesn't sometimes it doesn't look so obvious, but the link between the Horizon 1 kind of incremental change and that more disruptive vision that is far out in the future. We think that both are needed, and oftentimes that they kind of catalyze each other. In many discussions, like discussing the vision, as bold and far out as it may be, is enabled by kind of pointing out the pathway via those first projects, because very few companies could kind of manage to just pick up a bold vision and start running on that without having a couple of stops on the way, so to speak.
Yeah, so let's go to the next one, and then I think we're getting into cases already. Well, this is just an overview of some of the companies we're working with. We've also worked with Stora Enso, but not in packaging, I should say, circular buildings more. So if we just take some of these, we pick a few of these on the next slide as a case. One project that is very visible as a lighthouse project is, of course, the paper bottle project. Every time we put something up on that, we get 100 questions that questions the viability of this, which is kind of the purpose of lighthouse projects, is to create attention and to direct the knowledge also needed to actually make it. So in 2014, we did the first little blue bottle on the left. After tech scouting, we started working with EcoXpack in Denmark. And Carlsberg, who has been a customer of ours since 2008 or 9 in Sweden, was the first commercial partner. So what we built now is a community of new technology companies like Finnish Technos, Avantum in Holland, which is a producer of PEF, future renewable plastic material to replace PT. Alpla is the biggest builder of packaging lines for bottles. They're the most effective manufacturers of PT bottles today. But also, of course, needing alternatives for the long term. And then last week, the absolute version was launched. So we are launching pilot scale for L'Oréal, Absolut, Carlsberg, and Coca-Cola will be the next one, not out yet. So if we go to the next case, it's similar here with the legislation also driving and influencing single-use plastics. There's a lot of, luckily we had already started a few years earlier with a project that we called Hinoki that you can find on our site, that was kind of aimed at more sustainable travel, and also the fact that you don't want to check in, solving a lot of practicalities for consumers. And then prototyping that, it has led to a machine system that you can now buy to replace all the little butter packs or ketchup packs or anything that will be legislated in 2 years. So it's actually possible to solve it. Then I should say we're not there yet when it comes to science. So we still need to work with companies like VTT and RISE and new startups like Woodley that can actually make film from these new materials from the institutes. We need industrial partners, and we need companies within some of the categories that are mostly effective. So Bosch Power Tools, for instance, Lampman within food, retailers, etc. We don't have time to go really into the barriers that we faced here, but if to summarize it very shortly, the reality between a startup or a new technology and the barriers to scale quickly, and the way that big industry are prioritizing things that are small now is, there's a huge challenge there, both financially and legally, also between IP and finance. But we have some models that we can use and also discuss if it's somebody from a different business that is wanting to collaborate along the value chain. Maybe we shouldn't get into this then, but if you go to the next slide, this is a new cosmetic system where we're looking at the model for cosmetics with some of the biggest cosmetics companies, and the alternative, which is the next slide. If you think in a more modular way, where the recycling rate of paper, for instance, is over 70% and plastic is less than 20%. And if you look at cosmetics jars today, you neither want to keep them or throw them away. So they're kind of sub-optimized today. Yeah. So there's a lot to do.
I think what's also interesting with this example is, something that begins with a material and design innovation project like Hinoki, how it sort of triggered by those new material opportunities also evolves into business model innovation that these graphical representations show. The fact that you are able to do using wood-based raw materials, both durable, reusable, and beautiful containers, complemented by a single-use part, which is not just throw away fossil-based, but actually recyclable and renewable, has sort of spun out into this, I would say, viable business idea how to not just do a material innovation, but a more larger scoped business model innovation.
Hey, thank you much, and thank you, Lisa. Very fascinating presentation and examples, very tangible. Jane is clapping here of sustainable packaging. We have just a few minutes left. We want very quickly ask you one question. Actually, we have a long list of questions, but since we have only 5 minutes left, we ask you one. And Jane, what was the question?
If someone in the audience is now starting a journey towards like circular economy, what would you recommend as a starting point? Is there any advice that you could give for them? Like, what are the most challenging things? What about Riikka? Do you want to start, Riikka?
In one sentence.
In one sentence, please.
That's a tricky one. Understand where you are. Understand where the gaps are. I think that the most important thing is to understand the big picture and what plays and matters in that big picture. So basically understanding where your materials come from, having the information of how circular you truly are, and then you can find those hotspots where business interest and material wastage actually meets. And then obviously collaboration, etc., etc. But that's more about the means, but really understanding where you are.
Right. Thank you, Riikka. How about Jonas? What do you think? What would you recommend? How to take off?
Yeah, if I mention some, I think the understanding the baseline, that's starting point, but then choosing another word on top of that, stakeholders. Identify the necessary stakeholders. Often very complex value chains, and involve, create awareness, push.
Yes, definitely. Anssi, Boas, if you're online here with us, what would you recommend?
Yes, we are.
As a big energy company, how would you? What would be your advice?
Please repeat the question. Boas, do you want to answer?
No, actually, I a little bit faded out of the context here. So,
Yeah. Because I was writing an answer to a question here, so I missed the question. So please, if you can repeat it.
Yeah. Okay, I do very quickly. So we're just asking you a recommendation and to share with the audience, like how this journey started. What if they're starting now? Like, what would you recommend, and what is challenging? What they're facing?
I think what was challenging here is that we are very much competing instead of collaborating.
Oh.
Good point.
I see that we really need to kind of find common goals, and the common goals cannot maybe be always the short term. So that the common goal is sustainability, but that we all need to kind of practically engage in it. And that means that we need to share more data. We need to be more open of what we're doing. We need to kind of set the record straight of how this circular economy is going to practically work.
Yes, wise
Yeah.
one.
Just a short answer to, I try to keep it short, to build on top of that. So like you mentioned, I mean, we do have most of the building blocks existing, but especially in recycling and somewhat in energy as well, the business is quite complex, so no single operator can or single actor can make it happen. So we, like Boas said, we need partnerships to basically make things happen. So that would be probably the one takeaway. So just to boldly start to build partnerships so we can create more circular business models.
As I said, like bringing the data back and forth and the circularity, then I think that's the first step. And then later on, we could start communicating crisscross or over the circle. So discussing also like with the producers and so on. It's really good that some people are taking steps forward with this. I think because e-waste is not the only part that needs this kind of solution, but very many other materials as well. And it's nice to see that companies are working hard on changing this.
Yes, stop competing and start collaborating. Lisa, Mats, one word.
Okay, so two words from me. Honesty and humility. I think that as one, like introspectively, companies need to be quite humble about where they are and what their current capabilities are. If you listen to what they say, publicly, all companies are already extremely sustainable. In fact, they've been circular for the past 20 years. And so if you just went by what companies communicated, we shouldn't have a problem. And yet here we are. So I think as you kind of embark on innovation journeys, especially if you're producing companies, you need to create conditions where it can get uncomfortable and challenging. And maybe kind of think about the possibility of none of your current business being viable in 10 years from now. That was, sorry, a long answer, but
Thank you, Mats.
Thank you.
Lisa, Mats stole your minute.
So I'll do the 2 words, inspire and prototype. I think design as a tool is, undervalued.
Thank you everyone. Thank you for all participants, and thank you speakers for your amazing presentations. We started this presentation, this meetup with the WISE, and there is definitely the need. We have technology in place and it's time financial viable. Now we all need us work together to create a real impact. So the real missing piece is also here, and based on the discussion we have right now, we shared the same goals. This is make me
cry.
And for make the to make this transition to enable circular economy, we need to start kind of mindset change. We have to think value instead of waste, and end of use instead of end of life. And I like this one, from how much can I get from how little I give, towards how much can I give for all that we get. And with that, we will need all the players to build this circle value chain, and collaboration, cooperation, transparency, and trust. And with all of that, we will need you.
Yeah, and we need to allow our brains to think the unthinkable. That is, suspending the pressure of what can be done today and shifting to the question, what if? And this is like making this future tangible. Break paradigms and embrace more sustainable ways of operating our businesses and living our life. In the end, we are not only thinking about touch points in a single person journey, right? But in a society, and on how we can guarantee a better future for all of us. And we started today.
Yes. Thank you so much once again, and please let's stay in touch. So find us on LinkedIn, subscribe for our next event, and also call us, WhatsApp us, email us. Please, let's stay in touch and keep ongoing this conversation. It's very important today and for our better future. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And now you can go back.
Thanks a lot. Excellent.
Thank you.
Take care.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
there. Yeah. Thank you to the control room.
Thank you, William.
Thank you, William. Yeah.
Bye.